Good morning.
Morning.
Nice to see everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Chris Winter. I'm the Executive Director of the Getches-Wilkinson Center for Natural Resources, Energy, and the Environment here at Colorado Law School. And thank you so much for joining us here today for our annual summer conference, which is again focused on the future of the Colorado River. I see so many familiar faces here in the room with us, so thank you so much for joining us. But for those of us who aren't familiar with the Getches-Wilkinson Center, we're an interdisciplinary research center here at the law school. We leverage one of the best environmental law programs in the country, and we influence the trajectory of natural resources law and policy across the American West. And we also mentor the next generation of committed lawyers and advocates. So we're so pleased to have you with us this morning. I know that many of you here in the room came through the program here at Colorado Law School. And your careers were influenced by your work with the Getches-Wilkinson Center and with professors Getches and Wilkinson. And so I think that's a testament to the impact that this institution has had on the issues that we care about. And we're working really hard to carry on that tradition here. And you all can help us do that by finding an opportunity to connect with some of the amazing law students and recent grads who are going to be with us here today. They are doing amazing work. They're the future leaders for these issues. And so I hope you'll find a chance to connect with them at some point over the next couple of days. I also get the privilege to extend some very important thank yous at the outset of the program. Of course, I'd like to thank the Water and Tribes Initiative, who's co-convening this event for us, with us for the third year in a row. So a big thank you to them. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsors, the Walton Family Foundation and the Conscience Bay Company, our leadership partner, Berg Hill Greenleaf Rashidi, and our supporting partners, the Native American Rights Fund and SOMAC Simmons and Dunn. So please join me in giving them a round of applause. We are so grateful for their support. And there's many other organizations who supported the event that were listed in the program as well, so please check them out. I also wanted to just take a moment at the outset of our event to acknowledge the attack that happened in the city of Boulder earlier this week. Tragic events. We are in solidarity with the victims and their families. This is a difficult moment for our community, so I appreciate all of you being here with us today. And we have learned time and again that the city of Boulder and our community here is very resilient. And so I do know that we'll bounce back. I know it's going to be difficult, but just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that and to thank you all for joining us here in community today. As we gather for this event over the next 2 days, it's also important to honor and acknowledge that the University of Colorado Law School and the entire University of Colorado campus are on the ancestral and traditional homelands of the Ute, Arapaho, and Cheyenne people. And further, we acknowledge the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that are now called the state of Colorado. And it's a privilege for all of us to be here today together. So the next 2 days are going to be interesting, to say the least. We all know that this is a critical moment in time for the future of the Colorado River. We're dealing with some significant challenges, but I'm incredibly encouraged that we have so many experienced, skilled, and dedicated people in the room here today with us at one time. There are well over 400 people who registered for the event, and we'll be learning from some of the most knowledgeable and experienced people in the basin. I'm also thrilled we have so many tribal representatives with us, so many youth from around the basin. So I think this is a really exciting convening. This is really a unique opportunity, especially at this time in the history of the river. With so many people, I know this space is going to be tight here in the room, so it'll be easy for everyone to meet some new people, and please help folks find an open seat and be accommodating. We also have some overflow room upstairs, so there's a couple classrooms up there where we'll be live streaming the panel, so you can feel free to use those rooms. A couple of other logistics, so we have the door on this side of the first floor is the one that's unlocked for the conference. So please, if you're coming in and out of the building, use that door over there. Parking, I've already talked to a few people. We struggle a little bit with our parking system here at CU, but we appreciate everybody's patience. Parking, I think, sold out this morning, and then we got some more spaces opened up. So now there's, I think, parking in both 402 and 470. So if you did not get a parking spot through the online registration system, please go back in. And I think now you'll be able to get one. So brief logistic on parking. And then I also wanted to share a note on our Q&A platform. So for those of you who've been here with us the last couple of years, this will be familiar for you, but we use a platform called Slido. It's really easy to use. I'd encourage you all to try to plug into it. You can just scan the QR code that's in the program. There'll also be a QR code, I think, up on the screen on any of your devices. That will take you to a web page where it'll be really easy for you to both submit questions for the speakers and also to vote on questions that others have submitted. So collectively, we can kind of elevate the most intriguing questions that folks have put into that system. So most importantly, you don't have to download an app. You don't have to give it your email. You don't have to register. And you don't have to even share your name. So you can submit stuff anonymously. It's really quite easy. It's remarkable. Technology sometimes actually works. And this is one of those times. So please use Slido, and we'll be using that over the course of the next couple of days. Great. Okay, so lastly, I want to give an early and huge shout out to Doug Kenney and Annie Carlozzi for everything they've done to bring us all together. So please give them a huge round of applause for all their hard work. Doug is over here. You'll be hearing from Doug a lot today. Annie is, I don't know, she might be outside. Here she is. She's coming in. Thank you, Annie. So if you get a chance, please thank Doug and Annie for their hard work, because it's really amazing to work with both of them. They're wonderful colleagues. Okay, so now it's my immense pleasure and honor to introduce the Dean of the Colorado Law School, Lolita Buckner-Inniss, who will share a few opening remarks. Dean Inniss, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you all for being here. First and foremost, good morning. I know that this is perhaps a tiny bit early, especially as the weather turns warmer and we all have so many other commitments. And so it is that much more meaningful that you are here with us at this time. I think, as we all know, that this particular conference, the Colorado Law Conference on Natural Resources, has been going for a long time. And in fact, this year marks the 45th time that we've gathered for this event. And it is very fitting that in this anniversary year, we return our focus to one of the most enduring and most urgent topics of our time: the past, the present, and most pressingly, the future of the Colorado River. This conference is one that at its core focuses on resilience, the resilience of nature, the resilience of the people who've interacted with the river and with nature. And as I think about resilience, I also want to pause for a moment and recognize the tremendous tragedy that occurred recently in our community with the attacks on Pearl Street. I have to tell you that for those of you who've come to know me fairly well, I'm a pretty upbeat person. I'm pretty, sort of face forward, march ahead. I'm actually pretty resilient myself. I've also said to many of you in this room, I sometimes hate the word resilience, because sometimes implicated there is the sense that we should just bow our heads and act as if nothing has happened as we march on. And I just want to pause and say that as a community, I know that you join me in not just decrying the heinous attack, but also expressing sympathy and empathy for the victims. And beyond that, expressing empathy and sympathy for our community ethos, because one of the things that we lose when things like that happen is our sense of safety, our sense of a willingness to be together as a community, our sense of being willing to acknowledge that there are multiple perspectives and viewpoints, and that all are welcome to express them peacefully. And so I say to you, yes, let's be resilient, but let's also be vigilant and make sure that we work to support the ongoing opportunity for all to express their opinions. Turning back to the Colorado River, I think we all know that it's more than just a waterway. And here I will pause for a moment to say that, as some of you know, I am a multi-generational Angelino. I'm a Californian. And so when we hear Colorado River, you recognize, of course, that there has been a history of tension between those two states. And so it's intriguing for me to be now dean of a law school where the Colorado River is so much at the center of our focus. So yes, I know it's more than a waterway. I know that it's a lifeline. I know that it's a legal battleground. I know that it's also a cultural and a spiritual symbol, and it's a point of reckoning for so many. And for all these reasons, we are deeply honored by your presence here today. This conference is much more than a meeting of experts. It is a gathering of stewards, for yes, I would say that all of us in this room are stewards. We are people who have inherited a very complex and multifaceted legacy, and we're now called to imagine a better and more equitable future, all while recognizing the deep and complex history of the past of the river. At the opening of this conference, you heard Chris acknowledge our sponsors, and I'd like to add a special note of thanks to the Water and Tribes Initiative. For the third consecutive year, the Water and Tribes Initiative has joined with the Getches-Wilkinson Center to co-convene this conference. We're proud of this partnership, not just for what it enables logistically, but for what it represents. Together, we're working to lift up voices that for much too long have been sidelined in major conversations about the river's management and its future. And we are working to reframe the discourse with clarity, with resolve, and most importantly, with humility, because only with humility can we listen to each other and gain perspective. To our tribal leaders and speakers, you honor us with your presence. You are not guests in this space. You are vital members of the community. I was thinking, as Chris was reading the land acknowledgement, and I know that many of us recognize that there are some deep concerns and indeed flaws in having a land acknowledgement, a set of words that says very briefly what has happened really over a millennia in this region. We recognize the strife, we recognize the great gift that we have in being here on Native lands. And we also recognize not just that past, but the future and what it means for Indigenous people to be represented here, and what it means for us to have the opportunity to share in Indigenous knowledge, to understand and expand the meaning of sovereignty in that context, and to know that first and foremost, we are here to listen to those voices and not merely to speak at them or to them. We're also thankful for the presence of our federal colleagues today, including those from the Bureau of Reclamation and the Department of the Interior. Your participation here underscores the federal government's critical role in shaping and stewarding the river's future. More than that, your presence signals a willingness also to listen and to engage and to build consensus rather than conflict around this most vital resource. I also want to give a shout out to many of our private partners, those from industry, those from private firms. And I have to say, when I look at the list of attendees today at this program, this represents the finest of public-private partnerships, I'm sure, that is ever seen in this context. And I am so proud to be a part of this. As we reflect together, we must reckon with where we are right now. The Colorado River, like so many natural systems, stands, as the conference theme notes, at a crossroads. This is a moment marked by intensifying climate impacts, legal and political complexity, and deep historical inequities that can no longer be ignored or deferred. This is, of course, not a new set of circumstances. Nearly 30 years ago, in a symposium called Changing the River's Course, Western Water Reform, one of my predecessor deans and a towering figure in water law, Dean David Getches, described the challenges in words that remain deeply resonant. Dean Getches said, Water policy has left an indelible mark on America's Western landscape. During the settlement and development of the West, a set of water policies evolved to create institutions and enable construction of facilities that allocate, store, distribute, and manage water. The most stunning tangible manifestation of those policies is the built environment, of course. It's what we see all around us and what that water has made possible for us. Though less visible, the underlying legal institutional framework also stands with its foundations deeply set. Either the built environment or the laws and institutions would be extremely difficult to remove or fundamentally change, but each of them must be reformed and operated differently to respond to the changing nature of the West. Dean Getches spoke of many things, including fragmentation and the absence of a collective vision. But he also, again, and this is a harken back to the word resilience, he also gestured towards hope, the possibility that through cooperative effort, those many competing claims might one day be reconciled. Today, we continue in that spirit, but we do so with even greater urgency. The forces of climate change, the growing recognition of environmental justice, and I might note the recent attacks on environmental justice, and the hard lessons of litigation and scarcity have made clear that old paradigms are entirely insufficient. Yet in this moment, I am hopeful. I am hopeful mostly because you are all here. We are all here. The people in this room, the tribal leaders, the scholars, agency officials, community advocates, legal thinkers, you are not just participating in this conversation, you are shaping this conversation. You are making this happen. You're building frameworks where none have existed, and you are reforming and reconciling old frameworks that just don't serve us anymore. You are working not only to save a river, but to reimagine what shared governance, shared sacrifice, and shared future can look like. In doing so, you're answering the call to envision not just what the river might be, but who we might become as a people who care deeply about it. In closing, I quote again from the late Dean Getches. Water policy has faltered through the ages. Our water decisions have often created more problems than they've resolved, leaving severe environmental and social disasters in their wake. On the contrary, we've been making the same errors for thousands of years by replicating policies that failed societies both ancient and modern. This destructive trend need not continue, and it can be reversed. It requires modesty about our ability to control nature. These problems are complex, but certainly not impossible to solve. And so, again, I thank you for being here. Thank you for your presence, yes, but thank you for your ongoing engagement. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your willingness to persist, even in times of great strife. The future of the Colorado River, indeed the future of our interconnected communities, will be shaped by collaboration, creativity, and unflinching commitment to justice, even where there are barriers to justice. May this conference be an important part of that ongoing and indeed sacred work, sacred both in the spiritual sense and in the secular sense. Thank you so much for being here, and I wish us all a wonderful conference. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dean Inniss. Okay, now it's my privilege to introduce Daryl Vigil from the Water and Tribes Initiative. Daryl.
Oh, wow. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, for, I'm speaking on behalf of Dr. Matt McKenney and myself. I think he's watching right now. He couldn't be here again this year. Hopefully next year, if we continue the partnership, he'll be able to make one of them anyway, right? But anyway, thank you for honoring us, for being here. And thank you for accepting the invitation to be at this conference. And very, very, very honored that we've been able to create a partnership with the Getches-Wilkinson Center and Chris and his shop. And we couldn't, obviously it's a partnership and it's been, we think it's been pretty successful just in terms of the numbers that have been generated, increasing numbers each of the last 3 years. And thank you for that, because that gives us an indication. Hopefully we're on the right track and hopefully providing, a conference that hopefully that leaves you with something, and that you can take away something from that, maybe alters a little bit of what your thinking was before you got here. And so I'm very grateful for that. So Tunjo and Hikuria, Seama and Hamas and Kuatsi Hopa and Karisan and Zia. So those are my 3 tribes, and it's been talked about a lot about land recognition and who was there before. And Hikarias were all the way up, or we're up south of Denver, all the way up into the Panhandle, and that was our traditional territory. And so I had an opportunity to be at the Broadmoor a couple of years ago, and I wept in my room because, most of my people will probably never be at the Broadmoor, and that's home. And so when we do land recognitions, I think that connection needs to be made. And when I was at the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs, wow, my heart broke, because wow, we'll never be here again except if we pay for the room. And so anyway, when that just came into my mind. Real quickly, in 2016, I was here for the first time, and I was upstairs in a conference room with a whole bunch of folks from Australia, Aboriginal folks that came to talk about Aboriginal water rights. And Dr. Charles Wilkinson was here at that time, and he sat in and he heard what I had to say. And after I spoke, we were in the hallway. He didn't say anything to me. He just gave me a hug. And so I don't know if he felt sorry for me or that was an encouragement. But anyway, I cherish that moment, because I have heroes in my indigenous world. And some of them are here today with me. And I have heroes in the non-Indigenous world. And he was one of them for me, in terms of like, wow, I don't even know this man, and he's giving me a hug. And so I appreciate, the foundation that's been set here. And then those of you, if you walk down the hallway, you'll probably see a whole bunch of familiar faces of those people who graduated from the law school here much younger. Where's Mike Connor? And today, I wear this pin right here. I got this in Santa Fe for one of the signings for the minutes. And I'm wearing it to honor Roberto Salmon. And, he passed away, and Roberto was my dear, dear friend. And he was here last year on one of the panels speaking about the minutes in Mexico. And I remember after the conference, we were talking, and he said, Daryl, he goes, I don't know because he had, he had fighting cancer. And he was like, I don't know if I can do this again. But he said, but if you ask me, I probably will. And so that was Roberto, and I want to honor him and his memory, because it was that spirit, that he brought, and I'm grateful to Sharon Migdal. I know you're watching, Sharon, for honoring him, and because she said that his family was there, and that's important that we honor those who've sacrificed most of their lives for this river. And real quickly, again, I've said this a long time ago. I refer to all of you as my river family. And I take that to heart because I really feel that way. I really feel that connection. And when you see that the amount of people who are interested in this conversation, I'm just blown away. You know, it makes my voice crack because so many people are interested in, as the dean said, transforming humanity. You know, and how do we do that? It's this. And so thank you for this. And I just want to thank, lastly, you know, our sponsorship, because we can't do this without any, you know, I mean, that's without resources. And yeah, money's important, but most importantly are those human relationships and the knowledge that you carry and the hopes and the dreams that you carry, that you share with us, that hopefully that we've been able to create this agenda for you all, because we try to listen, practice, and take the cotton out of our mouths and put it in our ears, or the other way around. Out of our ears and into our mouths. But anyway, so I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for John Echo Hawk and NARF as well. You know, I just love, you know, Terry Bessonette, who's our new director for Indigenous Women's Leadership Network, talked about 0 degrees of separation. You know, and that's kind of what it's been experiencing in this world. And, you know, my dad ran track against John Echo Hawk, if you can imagine. And then I heard yesterday that from one of the young men that works at NARF as well, that you know, his uncles were somewhere in Arizona, and they ran against the Echo Hawk boys too. And so it's such a small world, and I appreciate, you know, the work that NARF has done over the years, John. So thank you so much. Yep, and I've been blessed, and I've been given so much, you know, in terms of, you know, what I've gotten from my participation with Water and Tribes Initiative, and my dear relationship with my dear friend, Dr. Matt McKenney, and our leadership team, and all those people who've helped us, you know, really elevate a conversation, as the dean talked about. And part of this is absolutely rooted for me in thinking about my people, and my people from Jemez and Zia, who are farmers, who've been farmers for thousands and thousands of years. And that's not only you know, something that sustained them in terms of, you know, providing food and sustenance, but it's a spiritual practice as well. And so today I'm very honored because, you know, I have my close friend and cousin, Roger Frau, who's going to be talking about traditional Pueblo farming on that panel. And I've asked today, you know, for my dear friend and cousin and brother, Brophy Joseph Toledo, to lead us in the invocation today. And the reason why is Jemez Pueblo used to be in southern Colorado. And then they migrated down into where they're currently at, you know, right below that big Eagle Mountain. And so they talk about those places, you know, in the society houses, and they have names for all those places in southern Colorado. And it's pretty beautiful. And so some of those things, and so I'm very honored that we have Brophy, you know, who's part of a clan in Jemez, to give us the invocation today. So I'm going to, please come up.
Good morning. My name is Joseph, better known as Brophy, Toledo, Pueblo Jemez. I come from the Chief Council. I'm a traditional leader. I work with Flower Hill Institute as a cultural advisor. And on my traditional leadership with the Chief Council, I am also the cultural advisor. So I am honored to be here to open up in our indigenous way with my Toa language. Hedena shetonye tave sheje kwa lolina honge kwa ke gyota kwa lolina dabo lo pa wo jo e bo pekita kwa bo le no peta kwa lo kwa ke gyo kwa lolina e homo olonini kwa pe ba peta to yi to kwinu no to gyo lo pa wo yo ti jo mo he no se odo o ve pe ve mi he no se luwen e te gon hatan ta le o ya de non go mutava Da bo o lo ho ke fa de kwa hon jo so le non peta kwa lo ju ne kwa lo ju po come do kwa ka on te kyon kyo no ke kyo no ke o lo kwe da ton kya kwa ke pe o ve jin ta va da bo he do he pon se ton tan o pe ve ka hon to so va ka hon ji lon ba e to lo no to ve ho ve ki vi son mu e te go ne pe ke to bo kwa o te ve o ni no to lo we kwa hon ma sa la te ge ne kwe da non go donc mo kwa ka hante kan che ton je ta ti chingo kwa la ne na o kin to ton ton le sho be we so ke ta mo kwa hon le o te na ko kwa ke tanta ta da bo le monta mon le ta se to mon le e io vo mon giù se qua la ne un kwa ke tanta u me e do kwa ka hante kan che ton je ta ti chingo kwa la ne na o kin to ton a se mi la o kin to ton je to i to qui nuna toge huta nuna ta kinta ton kinjoi shokwe le kwe kwa hondo de dokia kwa lo bulu do kwa ka hanlele ta shiton shije ta veti chingoye earth people, that's who we are. We take care of her and she takes care of us. We speak with for those that are unspoken, the four-legged, the winged, the fin, the microinvertebrates, pollinators, bugs, insect, reptiles. That's our job, earth people. We belong together, especially with things that hindsight into foresight. Today we talk, tomorrow we do. Thank you.
Okay. Eden. Thank you, Brophy. Very powerful. And so just in closing from me, thank you for being here. Have a great conference. And I look forward to catching up with each one of you individually. And that's my goal for the weekend. I think I made a good start. So thank all of you for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Doug.